I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the founding fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Welcome. I was listening to the news this morning, the Westwood One broadcast, and they can be really, they can be really establishment. Obviously, they go along with the types of media outlets that have their script, written for them, use the same narratives that other media outlets do. But there's this one guy who does the offbeat. And they were telling a story about a police officer who, he's a new police officer. He used to be the lead singer for a heavy metal band called the Five Finger Death Punch. That was the name. I thought, wow, I forget. You forget. I never really was a heavy metal. I mean, like couldn't even name you a band besides Five Finger Death Punch. But it's like you introduce your band. Hello, hey everyone, we're Five Finger Death Punch, Blues Riffin' B. Watch me for the changes and try to keep up. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. This is Monday, and I want to thank you for starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are, in fact, building a liberty machine. There is a ton of news to get to, and we got a great show coming up for you. Of course, the Mueller hearings last week were a big debacle for the Democrats, so I thought I would reach out to my friend, fellow talk radio host, Gary S. Goldman, who has a show called Business, Politics, and Lifestyles. It's a weekly talk show, airs on WCRN 830, that is in the metro Boston area. We're going to talk to him about what it is. It's always great to talk to him and about the disastrous Mueller hearings from last week from the Democrats. And at 7:33, I want to introduce you to the president of the Coalition to End Domestic Violence. His name is Everett Bartlett. Specifically, this is what's fascinating about this, okay? Did anybody see that Al Franken has come out and said, the former senator from Minnesota, I wish I hadn't have resigned. This whole Me Too movement, and anyway, it's pretty funny that you have the Democrats now, the liberals pushing back against Me Too. I wonder why that is, and I can't help but wonder if the liberals are really going to start pushing back against Me Too because so many of their friends have been on Jeffrey Epstein's plane. Maybe? Even Nancy Pelosi's daughter said, uh-oh, after Epstein was arrested, uh-oh, this may be bad for some of our faves. Some of your faves. Oh, and Epstein's lawyers are about to get a treasure trove of very, very damning and condemning documents. They're about to start seeing the evidence against their client. And, of course, Epstein is still safe and sound after the attempted suicide or the assault. I still don't know which one it is because there's actually reports and circumstantial evidence that could support an assault. Again, telephone number 870-275-9799. Also, in Arkansas news, did anybody see where you had apparently the state of Arkansas has been in some contract with like an artist that promotes tourism in the state, and the contract is like $200,000 a year, and there was this request for this massive increase, and people are saying no. I mean, that's definitely a good thing. The governor, Governor Hutchinson, in an email, according to the Gazette, saying, this doesn't make much sense. And anyway, I thought that was pretty fascinating. I mean, I think a lot of people didn't even know we were paying money to do this anyway. We'll get into that as well later in the program. Don't want to forget that. Let's just go ahead and start. Let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Is this like the third week in a row that the president has tweeted something over the weekend and then it drives the news cycle for the next week? I'm telling you, it's a pleasure to cover the president of the United States, especially the way he refuses to. In many cases, this is why the media, they can't figure it out, but he refuses to dance to their drum. He says, you know what, media, you are not the DJ I know you try to be, but you're not the DJ in the club that we call life. I'm going to dance to my own beat. This is what he said. Representative Elijah Cummings has been a brutal bully, shouting and screaming at the great men and women of Border Patrol about conditions at the southern border, when actually his Baltimore district is far worse and more dangerous. His district is considered the worst in the United States. Do I have the second one? And he goes on, down there at the bottom, I'm sorry. As proven last week during a congressional tour, the border is clean, efficient, and well-run, very crowded. Cummings district is a disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess. If he spent more time in Baltimore, maybe he could help clean up this very dangerous and filthy place. So the media, obviously when he was talking about rodents and rats, the media says he was talking about, you guessed it, black people. And the media went into a frenzy. There was a CNN anchor that got choked up on TV because these guys are just they literally think. I mean, they can't possibly think this. Although, if this doesn't, I mean, the virtue signaling from the media, the signaling that I was reading this on the internet the other day. The idea of signaling is basically a way to lie and deceive people anyway. But so you're putting this virtue behind it, and this idea, basically you would just talk at everybody with your eyes closed, I mean, what I think from my morally superior hill as I approach this argument, and it's just sickening. I mean, it just drips off of the left, but it also evolves from day to day because, I mean, case in point, now people are trying to say that Al Franken shouldn't have resigned. You know what I mean? So I find this absolutely hilarious that they jumped on this and that this was racist. And it wasn't just that CNN anchor that got choked up. Yesterday on Fox News Sunday with Chris Wallace, who, again, is just getting increasingly more and more annoying because he is, he's always tried to pretend that he's, objective. But and there are clear examples where he, you could definitely say he was center-right in the way he would ask his questions, or at least he was considered center-right. And maybe, yeah, okay. I mean, to be honest, I would say I used to consider him, he would at least attempt to be objective. At this point, though, I think he's attempting to be a never-Trumper. That's what I think, in his coverage of the president. Because he was questioning the chief of staff yesterday, the White House Mick Mulvaney, and he was openly challenging Mulvaney, saying that this was racism. Now think about that. Fox News' lead guy for the Sunday show, Chris Wallace, yesterday in that interview was openly delivering questions under the assumption, presenting it as fact, that the president was a racist because he said that Baltimore is rat-infested. Now, come on. That's ridiculous. The Daily Wire, or actually, no, go to this one next, this tweet here. Here's Ryan Saavedra from the Daily Wire. This is a tweet. Donald Trump retweeted it, so it should be right next to it, right there. Let's watch this. This is actual footage from a resident of West Baltimore, which apparently they actually have lists for the rattiest cities, and West Baltimore has been at the top of that list many times. And by the way, this isn't. Go research headlines. We just had Dr. Drew Pinsky making headlines for talking about the rat population and the surge in rat population in Los Angeles. and the addiction crisis over there. Go look this up. Nobody said he was racist. And he was talking about how that L.A. is getting closer to actually having an outbreak of the bubonic plague because of the rats. Anyway, listen to this resident here. President Trump retweeting this. This is at Kim K. Baltimore, who is doing a lot of work on this issue in Baltimore. Go ahead.
Hello, it's me again, world. I was so excited when Miss Kim told me how many hits that we got and that the president actually responded to a lot of comments. And what he said was definitely true. He hasn't done anything for us. For the last, I think he's been in office over 20 years? 30. 30? Okay, so I was like 18 back then, and he hasn't done anything for us. No cookouts, no shoe giveaway, no clothes giveaway, nothing for the... And then y'all want to know about the houses. He hasn't done anything. Today is Saturday, July the 27th, 2019, not 1819. It's today. It's a little bit after 6 p.m. And like I said, I'm so excited. I'm so impressed with Miss Kim because she's helping us. And she's the only one. Y'all need to put her in office. Y'all need to give her his job. For real. And I'm just not saying that. It's true. Okay, the house, as far as the house and everything, like I said, he has never done anything for not even one person that I know of. I never heard anybody say anything about him. And people want to talk about Donald Trump this, Donald Trump that. Why is this man over there taking care of people at the border? We hungry. We need a place to stay. We feel like we're in a concentration camp. And it's just sad. He worried more about them than his own people. It's just crazy. Excuse me for venting like this, world, but
no.
It breaks my heart to see this.
Stop.
It does.
No. You don't have to apologize. This is, I think, the frustrations of a lot of Americans. A lot of people have said, specifically in the African-American community, that this is the frustration when it comes to unchecked illegal immigration. Not only does that take away potential employment, but it also takes away from our social safety nets. There's no question that it does. And this woman is raising an interesting point. And when she talks about Kim, what she's talking about is Kimberly Classic, a Baltimore County Republican Central Committee. She's on the committee, the Baltimore County Republicans. So she's doing a lot of work on this. Let's for a take on what the media is saying, though. Back to the Daily Wire piece that you just threw up there. Media claim Trump is racist for infestation rat tweet about Baltimore. These videos tell a different story. Actually, we have that video in the next Kim Classic tweet. Here is a tweet specifically from her. If you'll go to that. More trash, more concerned residents. People live in the home with the silver van. This is Representative Elijah Cummings' district. This has nothing to do with race. Let us all pray the city removes the trash and installs cameras to catch the individuals dumping on the property. Just go ahead and hit play on that. Listen to this.
3 to 6 months.
This is disgusting.
He said 2 to 3 months just to bring me a trash can like that.
And the reason why I picked this area to show you is because of the colleges, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They spent all that money on the college and just left everything around it. Just like this. Look up in there.
But do people live in the college area?
I don't know. All these houses are like this.
You can
This
tell
whole
me.
neighborhood. That's why I say, Terry, I know the best neighborhood. All of this stuff is like this.
Well, you did.
Yeah, I was like,
But wow, just think, it's probably homeless people live over here somewhere.
Yeah.
3 to 6 months.
So there you go. And it's apparently like that in a lot of places across West Baltimore. We have the Daily Wire reporting that Senator Bernie Sanders thrashed third world Baltimore years before Trump did. Scrolling down to well, first of all, he sat down with Jake Tapper of CNN. Quote, Tapper, I know you want to talk about issues, but I do also want to talk about what President Trump said about your former colleague in the House, Elijah Cummings, and his district being a disgusting rat and rodent-infested mess that no human being would want to live in. Sanders saying, Jake, it's unbelievable that we have a president of the United States who attacks American cities, who attacks Americans, who attacks somebody who's a friend of mine. Elijah Cummings is one of the most decent and outstanding members of the House of Representatives. He fights every day to improve life for his community. So that's essentially Bernie Sanders is piling on. There's just one problem. Bernie Sanders has criticized Baltimore as well. Go ahead and it should be the first Twitter video. Which article do you have? We're looking for the tweet from the no, you're on the wrong one. Sorry, you need to go to the next Daily Wire article. That's this right there, and scrolling down, past that one, right there, that one. Hit the go ahead, hit that button. Listen to this.
But anyone who took the walk that we took around this neighborhood would not think you're in a wealthy nation. You would think that you were in a third world country.
Mm-hmm. That's Bernie Sanders talking
about.
But
today what we're talking
Baltimore.
about is a community in which half of the people don't have jobs. Mm-hmm. We're talking about a community
it's good when a Democrat brings that
in
up.
which there are hundreds of buildings that are uninhabitable.
Yes.
We're talking about a community where kids are unable to go to schools that are decent.
Yeah, okay. It's not a new thing to see Democrats bathe themselves in hypocrisy. And they put a little Epsom salt in there, too, to make it nice. Baltimore Sun op-ed, Breitbart.com. Baltimore Sun op-ed 2016. Trump's right. Declare Baltimore a disaster and rebuild it. The Baltimore Sun published an op-ed November 9, 2016, the day Donald Trump was declared the winner of the 2016 presidential election, in which the author called for Baltimore to be declared a disaster and rebuilt. But Donald Trump is a racist. I really, really hope the people of this country are starting to roll their eyes every time the president then went back to Twitter. We're going to get to those tweets later, but he goes back to Twitter and he says the race card's getting old. You guys play the race card every time. The Baltimore mayor, Catherine Pugh, go to this one, Baltimore Sun. You can smell the rats. Oh, what a racist. Oh, but she's an African-American woman. Speaking of the Baltimore mayor, let me tell you why I think Trump is actually highlighting Elijah Cummings' district and Baltimore, and it has to do with the mayor. More on that next.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. You know, the last 2 weeks, the news has been extremely interesting. Last week this time, we were talking about the squad. There was, you had, the president, I guess, singling the squad out, talking about how they seem to have a really significant problem with the basic principles, foundations of this country. And, it kind of went from there. What were your thoughts on everything?
You really have a socialist wing of the Democratic Party now, and you got these young socialist leaders in the Democratic Party that are becoming the voice of the party. Even the presidential candidates are parroting what these four say. I was on a conference call with President Trump yesterday morning, and he referred to them as AOC plus 3. I think that's good.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Welcome back to the program. All right, so the Baltimore mayor, this is really why I think this has happened. So listen to this. Flashback, April 25th of this year. The FBI and the IRS raid Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh's home and offices at City Hall. I hope you hear this other places because I hope this actually spreads, but it's important to note that federal agents raided the Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh's home, part of City Hall, and another location in April. Pugh is under investigation for alleged self-dealing in connection with hundreds of thousands of dollars in payments for a self-published children's book from private companies that were subject to her influence. Okay? So she's got problems. Now, if you go over to the Daily Caller, they have a report reminding folks that Elijah Cummings' wife was hit with new allegations of self-dealing and perjury in an updated IRS complaint. This from Andrew Kerr back in June of this year. The wife of House Oversight Chairman Elijah Cummings is facing new allegations of self-dealing and perjury following the disclosure of financial dealings between her charity and her for-profit consulting firm, according to an IRS complaint a watchdog group filed Friday in response to a Daily Caller News Foundation report. What was the scheme? Well, apparently Elijah Cummings' wife had a nonprofit. What was it called? It's something like Global Policy or something. It doesn't really matter except for the fact that it's like Global Policy, and I'm sure that was really easy to get a bunch of big government globalists to donate to. Global Policy Solutions, okay? So she also had, though, so you had a nonprofit, but then she had a for-profit, and essentially what she would do, she would take a salary from the nonprofit, and then she would make the nonprofit be a client of the management company that was for-profit, and so then the nonprofit would pay her management company even more money. And when I read that last night, I thought to myself, that sounds familiar. That sounds very familiar. Where have I heard it before? I've heard it right here in Arkansas, technically Missouri. Go to, real quick, headline, Arkansas Democrat Gazette, September 16th, 2018. Files show execs at nonprofit netted $17 million with deal. It describes Tom and Bontia Goss, mentioned in the plea deal of Keith Noble, where it says that they were essentially, they had their nonprofit that was then giving money to their WD management company, I believe, and then they sold it. They sold WD management. Anyway, and they made bukus of money. It all sounded very familiar to me. Wonder how far the scandal goes.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Maybe he's trying out new nicknames for them, but that's the one he was using yesterday. And the
also the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse. I've heard that one. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Congressman.
Yeah. Take the personalities out of it, take everything else out of it, and just look at what they're saying on the policies they're pushing. And it's not a direction I think, at least I really hope, the majority of this country doesn't want to go in that direction where you're
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Man, last week was crazy. It looks like this week's going to be even crazier. We've got Dan Coates leaving. The media's all defending Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates. Going to be replaced, according to the president and other reports, obviously by Congressman Ratcliffe, going to be leaving Congress and the House Judiciary Committee. I've been told by people I trust that that's a great move and a great pick to replace Dan Coates, who has kind of been this last holdout that clearly does not see things the same way as the president on a lot of issues. And then, of course, last week we had the devastating Mueller hearings to the Democrats, which the Democrats are still trying to figure out, well, how can we keep this impeachment thing alive? How do we... I guess at this point it might be an energizing thing for the base, this idea of impeachment. I don't know, though. I think more and more people are waking up that the whole thing's been a giant scam. Matter of fact, let's bring in Gary S. Goldman. Let's get his opinion on this. Gary is a nationally recognized host of Business, Politics, and Lifestyles, which is a weekly talk show airing on WCRN 830 in Metro Boston. Gary, welcome back, sir. Glad to talk to you this morning.
Glad you had me on this morning.
So what were your thoughts? I mean, was the Mueller hearings, were they really devastating for the Dems?
Well, I think they were definitely devastating to the Dems as well as to Mueller. I mean, look at the guy won, in my opinion, several Academy Awards last week. He look at, you can't believe that Robert Mueller was of that state of mind on a regular basis, or going some mental capacity change in his life. Because if that was the case, they would have come to the Dems and said, listen, he's got some issues going on. I don't think it's a good idea to bring him into a hearing. But he, when you have him walk and sit down there, and he's frail, frazzled, and feeble, and can't even speak to the microphone, can't hear what's going on, repeating questions, something's going on. And I think it was devastating to the Dems, and like I said, devastating to Mueller. But the bottom line is the Dems are not going to hang it up. They're just not going to hang this up. They really believe there is something there.
I'm so glad you just brought that up. So your position is, and I think this is a definite possibility, you think Robert Mueller was acting?
I truly believe Robert Mueller was acting. When after that hearing, I mean, I was in awe watching and listening to that. I went back and pulled videotape of Robert Mueller, whether it was in hearings or conversations prior to that particular hearing, some as early as a week back, and he surely did not act as if he was of that state of mind. So I'm saying to myself, look, could he have just been a little bit, stressed out, frustrated over this whole hearing process? Maybe, but not to the point to act like that. I think he felt that he had to be at that hearing for whatever reason, and he just figured at best he's going to put on a show here because that's the only way he's going to get around this. And I believe he was acting through it all. I mean, why would you want to ruin, whether I agree with Robert Mueller's career, I mean, here in Massachusetts with the Whitey Bulger case, I'm definitely not a Mueller fan. But why would you want to ruin your reputation? A lot of people think he had a stellar reputation in a 7-hour congressional hearing. You would not want to do that. So I think he had to put on the act for whatever reason.
I thought about this over the weekend because I definitely heard this theory. So I went back and I watched Robert Mueller enter the room, and the man seems totally normal when he enters the room. Good eye contact, good coordination, and then he sits down in that chair, and his jaw kind of goes loose, and like it's hanging open, and all of a sudden he looks like, he's 10, 15 years older than he actually is. And I thought to myself, it does look very strange. And so then the next question is, if he was acting, why is he acting? And it may have something to do with him approving the Uranium One deal.
Yeah, I think Robert Mueller may be into this, a little more than he wants to lead us to believe on a number of different issues, just as you brought up. And, he may have given it some thought and said, this is my best out. But look, I've been trying to come up with the motive of this type of action all weekend and right after the hearing. And I mean, there's a number of theories you can float out there, and I'm not really sure what it is. But when I go back and listen to I played it again last night and listen to the hearing, I'm saying to myself, this thing is over for the Democrats. There's no way they're going to move forward.
Right.
Then I having this conversation with myself saying, look, if they can't go with impeachment, they're going to just continue to go after Donald J. Trump. It's going to be about his business, his family. This is not going to end. And should he remain in office, which I hope, pray every day that he does, and I believe he will win re-election, that they will just continue this onslaught on a daily basis. And when I hear some of the congressional people that were in that hearing say stellar performance, we have everything we need now to go on to impeachment hearings, you really have to wonder if they're of the right mind. Because look, I had many people call my show after this episode, this hearing, and telling me, look, he did a great job. He was articulate. He answered all the questions. He couldn't even answer questions that were in the report. He was acting like he saw that report for the first time.
Yep.
Which, was he just a figurehead throughout this whole process? Could very well be.
Well, and that's the thing. So, for practical purposes, I don't think you're never going to be able to prove if he was acting or not. So, the media and even Congress, they're going to give him the benefit of the doubt because
right.
Let's say if it was acting, it was a great performance. So, practically, the narrative now is that he was a figurehead, Gary, and that he really didn't write his report, which means that it was really just the angry Democrats that wrote it. You had people who were working on this that were, that were at Hillary Clinton's, victory celebration that was not a victory celebration. And so you really get the sense that, that they put him up as a figurehead, as somebody who was just there to be a placeholder, to use his reputation as, a way to make the investigation seem more legitimate and not seem like it was a witch hunt.
I think that's a viable, thought process that you're going through here. And I think, again, if you go back and look through the 2.5-year plus process of this, how many times did you really ever hear Robert Mueller talk? You didn't. You saw him like walking into a meeting or walking out of meetings they were having. He didn't have a lot of voice in regard to this. And, I mean, I'm starting to believe that he was purely the figurehead. They used him. It was an truly angry Hillary supporters. And the bottom line is, when you think about what was going on, they were trying to initiate a coup. There's no doubt about it. This was the attempt of a soft coup, and that's why I believe somebody has to be held accountable for what went on here. And until someone's indicted, the Dems are going to keep continually going on with this nonsense. But, the American people, it doesn't matter what political affiliation you are, you should be pretty upset that occurred, because if it's my side this time, it could be your side next time if we don't stop it.
No, that is exactly right. And, I'm just wondering about people like James Comey, Clapper, John Brennan. I'm wondering about these guys because they seem to be the most vocal, or at times. Andrew McCabe admits what I believe is a crime. Plotting to sway members of the cabinet and that sort of thing, talking about wiretapping the president. I think he admits to a crime in a book and then goes on a media tour. Let me ask you this, Gary. Do you think these guys know that they could throw the book at him at any moment, but let's go on as many mainstream outlets as we can, so if we get arrested, we can claim that we're a banana republic and the president's going after his political enemies?
I think that's a big part of it. And I think, look at when you have the media, the mainstream media, and to some degree social media on your side, it's a very dangerous thing because they're able to help you push your narrative along. Unfortunately, I think they ran into President Trump and Attorney General Barr, and I'm hoping that he is going to, again, go after one of them and start setting the example. But that's exactly what they're doing. They're out there at times admitting their guilt and talking vocally about the things that they've done because they really feel that they will somehow turn this around on the president. They haven't been able to do anything to that degree yet. But, look at, when you're boxed in a corner, you're going to do anything if you're facing an orange jumpsuit and possible prison time.
Yes, that's exactly right. Even if that includes potentially, putting on an Academy Award-winning performance and acting like you don't know what's going on. And that was, I guess, the other frustrating thing about that, regardless of Mueller's motivations. He refused to talk about the Steele dossier. He really also refused to talk about, a lot of people don't know this, that Robert Mueller had a meeting with President Trump the day before he was appointed special counsel. He doesn't want to talk about that. Doesn't want to talk about when he knew Peter Strzok was so hostile to the president versus when he was hired to work for Robert Mueller. A lot of stuff that we needed answers to, he just said, well, I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah, and look he was conveniently unfamiliar with his own report during that hearing. And he should get an Academy Award for that as well. I mean, here's a guy that spent $30 million of the taxpayers' money, and he doesn't know what's in the report? Come on. Or even if he was a figurehead, knowing what I know about Robert Mueller and what I've read about Mueller, I would have believed that he would have read the report so he could have some backups should someone ever question him, because he couldn't be that naive to believe that nobody was ever going to question him on this report.
What we did find out, though, was that, Mueller, there is a lot of evidence to suggest that he really was just the figurehead or just a puppet because he kept contradicting himself, And then there's this letter that was written after the initial press conference with AG Barr, saying we need to clarify, and it was signed by Robert Mueller, but then we kind of figure out he didn't write the letter. I mean, that's kind of the speculation. He didn't actually write it because after the letter was written, they had to come back out and clarify that there was a mistake in the letter because it had conflicted with what A.G. Barr had said, and so it's clear that, this is what's frustrating. It doesn't appear that the special counsel was a monolithic counsel because, that's the whole reason why you have a second report. You have the first report, but then you have that second one that, just goes into all these other areas trying to make the president look as bad as they possibly can.
Right, and he, when you think of that whole process, the report came out, and then Mueller waited a while before he went in front of the cameras and had that press conference that started, speculation again.
8 minutes.
And look at 8 minutes. Yeah, that's why I'm straight. There's a part of me that believes, look, do they have something on Mueller? It's one thing to be a figurehead, but again, it's another thing to be a figurehead and throw your career away. And at times, maybe they said, look, you show up at that hearing, and whatever happens, but you have to be at that hearing for whatever reason. I don't know. There's definitely in my mind, and if I had the answer, it would be wonderful. But there's something going on there that I can't put my hands on with Mueller, because the more I read about him, and then I look at the way he's acting, they don't match one another.
Well, I agree with you, and I definitely do not think the Democrats expected that performance out of Robert Mueller at all, or they would have never asked him to testify. They were having mock, theatrical rehearsals, where they had some guy standing in to be Jim Jordan, and I mean they thought it was going to be a brouhaha, and they wouldn't even cooperate with the Democrats' scripted questions and their PowerPoint presentation, and it really was a disaster, of the highest order, and when you have the mainstream media even saying that, I feel like that was a break. It was so bad that even the mainstream media had to report on it, Gary. And so there was a break in the blockade of truth, and hopefully it woke some people up.
Yeah, though, they had no choice. I mean, as much as they wanted to put some spin on that, there was no way. I mean, throughout that entire hearing, as the day went on, more and more of the mainstream media was throwing in the towel, saying, this is unbelievable. He's not answering questions. He's acting as if he doesn't understand. He's acting feeble, whatever else. Not helping the Democrats. So the whole thing went on and on. But I mean, if someone told me that how the hearing was going to go to any degree, I would have laughed at them. But then watching it was like, wow. I mean, this is just unbelievable. It was a turn I didn't expect. I'm not sure about you, but I never expected anything to that degree.
Well, I really appreciate you coming on. Gary S. Goldman, a nationally recognized host of Business, Politics, and Lifestyles, a weekly show on WCRN 830 in Metro Boston. Gary, it's always great to have you on, sir. Best of luck to you, and really appreciate you, being on the airwaves up there. And I'd love to have you. I'd love to talk to you about the Whitey Bulger and Robert Mueller connection at some point, because that there is certainly a there.
Yeah, that'd be a great conversation. Anytime, just let me know.
All righty. Gary S. Goldman, appreciate it. So you have a great week. Folks, we're going to reset, going to take a break. We'll make a clip of this video on a separate YouTube video, going to upload it at conduitnews.com in the YouTube channel. Back in a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
Just demonizing everything that's made this country great over time, and trying to put policies in place that I believe would devastate our economy and devastate the way of life that we have, and do nothing other than make the government larger and put people we don't want it to have in control of what happens in our lives. So some of the things they say, it's almost like, you think, are they really saying that? Do they really mean they want to get away from all fossil fuels in 10 years? Do they really want to have open borders and free health care for anyone who comes to our country? And the answer is yes. I mean, these are policies that they're
determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks. Wow. Man, I'm telling you, it's been a crazy news week. It's going to continue to get even better, by the way. I'm just telling you, the left is doing this to themselves. We just got to back out of the room. So I was telling you earlier about the giant hypocrisy. Okay, yeah, we get it. Trump tweets out a factual piece of information, and he's a racist for doing it. Right? Let's get to some of these other Donald Trump tweets. We have to. So in light of all the stuff that came out, the videos of trashy Baltimore, the old articles of the mayor of Baltimore talking about how bad the rats smell. 2 weeks ago, Dr. Drew Pinsky on his show was talking about the rats in Los Angeles and how there is a scientific-ish predictor that once the rat population reaches this percentage, you do get bubonic plague. Okay, he wasn't a racist for saying that. Donald Trump is Chris Wallace should be totally ashamed of himself. You ought to go, I don't want to play it because you should go and watch Chris Wallace's Fox News interview with Mulvaney, the Chief of Staff, White House Chief of Staff, where he is asking questions based on the assumption that the tweet was racist. When he said no one would want to live there, it's rodent, rat infested, and disgusting, that Trump must have been talking about black people. And he called them rodents and he called them rats. And Wallace is asking him questions based on that, not based on like whether or not it's a question, not saying, well, the Democrats say. Wallace himself, it is clear, you go watch that interview, Wallace himself believes, in my opinion, he believes that Donald Trump is racist. They cannot handle this. And yet, look at the facts that come out. President Trump tweets something, they freak out, but here are the facts. The mayor has said that it's rat infested. And now they're basically trying to redo the English language or reinterpret the English. Oh, are you calling somebody a rat? That's now the equivalent of the N-word. You must be referring to people who look different than you. Donald Trump tweeted this: if racist Elijah Cummings would focus more of his energy on helping the good people of his district and Baltimore itself, perhaps progress could be made in fixing the mess that he has helped to create over many years of incompetent leadership. His radical oversight is a joke. Next tweet. There is nothing racist in plainly stating what most people already know, that Elijah Cummings has done a terrible job for the people of his district and of Baltimore itself. Dems always play the race card when they are unable to win with facts. Shame. Next. Elijah Cummings has had his chance to address it, crime and conditions in Baltimore, for decades, and he hasn't gotten it done. That's a quote from Peter Hegseth on Fox and Friends. How can he get it done when he just wants to use his oversight committee to hurt innocent people and divide our country? Next. Speaking of failing badly, has anyone seen what is happening to Nancy Pelosi's district in San Francisco? It's not even recognizable lately. Something must be done before it's too late. The Dems should stop wasting time on the witch hunt hoax and start focusing on our country. And so when the president tweeted that, this was after the initial claims that he was racist. You know what the left says? They ignore the fact that San Francisco is literally got feces on the sidewalk from their homeless population. They ignore that and instead say, you're just trying to do damage control, racist. You're just trying to criticize a white person's district to make you seem less racist, but it's not going to work. We know that you're really a racist, and you're just doing this because you know you're caught as being a racist. You're a racist. You get a racist. You get a racist. Everyone gets a racist. Oh, man. Yeah. Oh, is it? Do you know that Nancy Pelosi, is it true? Let me Google this. Somebody on Facebook said that Nancy Pelosi's dad was the mayor of Baltimore. Here, next tweet, though, real quick, because this one is the big one. This one is the one. This is the real reason. This tweet right here, this is the real reason Donald Trump decided to pick on Elijah Cummings. He knows something. The president knows something. Why is so much money sent to Elijah Cummings' district when it is considered the worst run and most dangerous anywhere in the United States? No human being would want to live there. Where is all this money going? How much is stolen? Investigate this corrupt mess immediately. Now, that tweet probably frightened Elijah Cummings, because the president, when he says stuff like this, so far in his presidency, it means he knows something. And the media might make fun of him. The media might say he's crazy. He's making baseless accusations. But I'll just refer you back to the times President Trump tweets things and gets made fun of by the media, and then 6 months later, it was true. It was based on factual information. Like when he said he was wiretapped, when he was spied on, everybody said the President of the United States. Oh, can you believe he said that? Was he? He was the mayor of Baltimore. Nancy, no, that's an interesting connection right there. So Mayor Nancy Pelosi's dad used to be the mayor of Baltimore. Interesting the way things work out like that. All right, folks, that's all the time we have for this hour. Want to remind you that Elijah Cummings' wife is under investigation by the IRS. Also want to remind you that the FBI back in April raided the mayor of Baltimore's house and the city hall offices. FBI and IRS raided Mayor of Baltimore, Catherine Pugh. Also, the city of Baltimore got $1.8 billion in stimulus funds under Barack Obama's administration. Wonder what happened to all that money. Have you seen these videos, how trashy this place is? I'm telling you, the president knows something about someone or a group of people. Very interesting. We got one more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 1230 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
They're pushing, and it's the direction they would like to see the country go. So I'm glad we've got a president that will push back against that. I'm glad we've got a Senate right now that stops the crazy legislation that's being passed out of the House, that most of it's just messaging, and a lot of the messaging is based around what these 4 freshman Democrats are pushing. So you got the socialist Democrats that are setting the agenda and pushing the policy that comes out of the House, which none of it's really serious policy. I don't think if people could look at it and see it in detail, I don't think anybody would really give it the time of day. And then when you get serious policy that came out yesterday to raise the debt limit, there was no constraints put in with that. We've got this ballooning deficit. We've got debt that's approaching or maybe even past $22 trillion. The accountants have been telling us for a long time that we're going to get to a point where interest on the debt is the single largest expenditure of the federal government, and we're fast approaching that. So we have responsibilities when we rack up this debt to pay the debt, which gives legitimacy to raising the debt ceiling. But my goodness, if we're going to raise the debt ceiling, let's put a plan in place to reduce the debt. And that bill yesterday had zero plan in it to reduce the debt. It was just to continue business as usual and not make any tough decisions. And I will say the administration proposed a lot of offsets, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer would have nothing to do with that. So we've got a broken process. It's something I'm continuing to work on, and I'll continue to work on it. But you feel like you're in a real minority when you're talking about fiscal stability and getting our our budgeting going in the right direction. And honestly, I don't think it's that hard of a problem to solve. But the more we continue to increase the debt, the harder and harder it's going to be to solve it.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
Hello. Hey, folks, welcome to the program, hour number 2. So glad that you guys are with us this morning. Telephone number 870-275-9799. You have chosen to start the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality up at conduit4action.org, soon to be over at conduitnews.com as well. We have this new article about the graphic that you still see on the screen left over from last week. Number 1, Arkansas number 1 in sales tax, snapping turtles and high sales taxes. I like that. That's pretty good. Democrat Gazette sought comment from Representative Joe Jett concerning Arkansas having the highest sales tax. The study shows Arkansas's combined state and local sales taxes statistically tied with Tennessee for having the highest sales tax in the country. While Jett said it's time for the legislature to look at our state sales tax and prune it back some, Jett tried to minimize the legislature's responsibility for taxes by claiming legislators can't control almost a third of the state sales tax. Before we explain why Jett is wrong about how much control the legislature has over sales taxes, here are a couple of things you need to know about the lack of pruning. Number 1, since July 2013, Arkansas's combined sales taxes have been ranked either the second or third highest in the nation by the same organization. So why wasn't it time to prune it back some in the legislative sessions 2013, 2014, 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19? Number 2, why did Jett and the legislature decide to propose a half-cent sales tax to appear on your 2020 ballot if they are even halfway serious about pruning the sales tax? Representative Joe Jett told the Democrat Gazette that the legislature only controls 4.5% of the 6.5% state sales tax. Why raise such a notion? Was it to start diminishing the people's hope the legislature will prune back the sales tax? Here is his argument. Representative Joe Jett, Republican Success, who is chairman of the House Revenue and Taxation Committee, said in an interview last week that, quote, we, the state legislature, can control 4.5% of the 6.5% of the state sales tax rate. He noted that 0.875% sales tax is for funding a constitutionally mandated adequate education for public schools, and constitutional amendments resulted in a rate of 0.125% for conservation, a rate of 0.5% for the homestead property tax credit, and a rate of 0.5% for highways and roads. End quote. Jett's long tenure as the chair of the House Revenue and Taxation Committee makes this statement all the more perplexing. He's been chair for 4.5 years, first as a Democrat, then as a Republican, but he still claims limited responsibility. Look at each sales tax Jet claims the legislature has no control over. Number one, 5%, or 0.5% for the homestead property tax credit. Okay. Funny he should mention the homestead property tax credit. Representative Joe Gent was a co-sponsor of a bill passed this year to raid the fund for property tax relief to the tune of over $32.7 million. Under Act 808, over $8.2 million is being spent for voting machines, and over $24.5 million is being spent or sent to the long-term reserve fund where it can be spent by the governor. Jet is using the name of the tax to claim they can't touch it because it's for property tax relief, but he and his colleagues are responsible for using the tax as a slush fund for any government project they wish. The legislature has full control over this tax. Either give all the money collected back to the taxpayers as property tax relief, as the name says, or reduce the sales tax going into the fund, eliminating your slush fund. Number two, 0.5% for roads and highways. The existing 0.5% tax for highways and roads is to pay off specific highway projects. First, the legislature could have exercised control by not proposing a new tax when this one ends, it sunsets. Second, the legislature could have been paying part of the debt early instead of blowing surpluses over the years. Number three, constitutional amendment imposing a 0.125% tax for conservation. Since this environment enhancement tax is in the Constitution, Jet claims the legislature does not have control. Yet the legislature has the power to propose 3 constitutional amendments and could have proposed an amendment to repeal or modify this tax. They weren't shy about proposing a constitutional amendment for your 2020 ballot to impose a sales tax, but claim there's nothing they can do to reduce a sales tax in the Constitution? If the legislature proposed eliminating this tax, do you really think the people would say no and want to be taxed? If you're not familiar with the environmental enhancement tax, here is where the money goes. Game and Fish Commission, 45%. Department of Parks and Tourism, 45%. Department of Heritage, 9%. And Keep Arkansas Beautiful, 1%. By the way, the environmental enhancement tax is still imposed on groceries. Number 4, 0.875% sales tax is for public schools. There is no restriction keeping the legislature from repealing the portion of the sales tax going to public schools and providing the same amount from general revenue or some other source of revenue. This is not a question of can't, as Jet would lead you to believe. It's just a political question of where the funding should come from. Does anyone remember the supposed $295.4 million surplus the legislature blew through at the end of June? How about that money? Conduit for Action is not advocating that any particular part of the sales tax be repealed. We just know the 6.5% state sales tax is high and must point out the legislature is not restricted in how they reduce the state sales tax. You guys are lawmakers. You can pass whatever law you want and change what you want. Currently, the legislature is exercising control by keeping the sales tax high. Okay? They've made the votes. They've made the decisions. They've chosen to pursue certain ideas that lead to higher taxes. They've chose to not pursue other ideas that lead to lower taxes in some circumstances, and in others they have. Bottom line is, fiscal year 2020, we're still facing a $70.5 million tax increase, net tax increase on the people of Arkansas. Joe Jet failed to mention local sales taxes in his comments. Are you supposed to think the legislature has no control over the ever-increasing local sales taxes? Perhaps you're supposed to assume the legislature doesn't have any control over local sales taxes, but the legislature could set limits on taxes if they wanted to. Local sales taxes may be levied only to the extent the state allows them through several laws authorizing local sales taxes. If the legislature chose, it could set a ceiling. Listen to this. If the legislature chose, it could set a ceiling on local sales taxes. Politically, very difficult, but they could still do it. Just as importantly, the legislature could end the practice of local governments using special elections to pass tax increases. Many local governments do this because they know it's easier to increase taxes when voter turnout is low. City of Jonesboro is attempting to do that as we speak. In 2017, the legislature failed to pass SB 723, which would have ended the practice of having special elections to pass local sales taxes. The bill passed the Senate and was only one vote short in the House. Representative Justin Gonzalez filed a similar bill this year, but it went nowhere. Another 2019 sales tax increase, internet sales tax. A majority of the legislature also decided this year to collect more sales tax from you by imposing the internet tax, which makes you pay sales tax even if you use the internet to make a purchase from a seller who has no connection to Arkansas other than shipping the goods to Arkansas. Joe Jett did not vote on that one. Tax and spend snapping turtles. There's an old folk tale that says if a snapping turtle bites you, it won't let go until it thunders. Tax and spend politicians are like snapping turtles. They aren't going to let go of any sales tax unless you thunder, the people. This is up right now at conduitforaction.org. It'll be cross-posted over at Conduit News in about 30 minutes, or about 45 minutes. As soon as I get off the air to do it. Telephone number 870-275-9799. Let us know what you think. Arkansas is at least number one in something. It's just not necessarily a category I would like. I don't think it's a category you would like. Let me know. 870-275-9799. Sound off on Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. When we come back, do Satanists have a higher moral standard than Donald Trump? And Trump supporters. Quote, comedian, end quote, D.L. Hughley says they do. We'll have that audio for you. It's outrageous, but I definitely think, man, no, it's something we need to talk about. That's all I'll say. Stay tuned.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
We live in a world where you have this baseline budgeting that has built-in increases in it every year, and if they've built in a 5% increase and you only increase by 3%, then it's politicized as a 2% cut. So you can grow.
I understand that, and I'm glad you're articulating it that way, because it is, we have people that just want to spend money, Congressman, and I know you're not one of those, but let me ask you this. I mean, I agree with you. The deficit, it's a big problem. It used to be something we talk about, a lot. I mean, I'll admit I haven't talked about it as much. Seems like we just kind of ceded the ground. We just, okay, so we're going to have this, we're never going to get serious about it. And, right now, people can make the argument, well, nothing bad has happened yet. So, I mean, I guess we can spend
exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
There it is. Sorry. I was like, I know my mic's not on that time. All right, so D.L. Hughley, quote, "You could worship the devil and be a better human being than a Trump supporter." I saw this on Friday. Matter of fact, I did our Patreon video. You can support us, $5 a month, get an extra video from me every week, patreon.com/CNR. CNR. D.L. Hughley, "You could worship the devil and be a better human being than a Trump supporter." There's so much here. It's so painful. Let's just listen in, because there's a conversation. This is the D.L. Hughley show. He's got some guests, but listen to this.
There's a difference even when, prior to the Trump administration, I had friends who were Republicans. There's someone in my family who's a Republican. I could sit down and have a conversation with them because they were a decent human being. We at least agreed on some of those core values, right? Mm-hmm. But with this guy, there's nothing about him that is likable. Nothing.
Stop. Me and my friends. I don't know who this woman is, but this is now. Sorry, we're out of coffee, so I went with Dr. Pepper. So first thing is this. We've talked about how the left now approaches arguments with the right as if they are morally superior. Case in point. Used to, Republicans were decent and we could have a conversation because you're a decent human being. But now because of Trump, they're no longer decent and you can't have a conversation with them because why would you want to talk to somebody who's evil? That's essentially what she's saying. Keep going.
Common, we love the same. I don't love like that dude. How you gonna think these things and love me?
Yeah, he doesn't love
you. You can't.
And it's really hard. I'm talking about somebody.
Think what things? Like that Baltimore is rat infested and the people are suffering. So I'm going to bring it to the attention of the entire country, and I'm going to blame it on the congressman from that area who's done nothing. I'm going to blame it on the public officials who don't really care about the people. They just like the power. They're okay with their own citizens living in terrible conditions and nothing ever changes. The Democrats make the same promises for decade after decade after decade, yet inner cities controlled by Democrats get worse and worse and worse and worse. And these limousine liberals that are upset because there's African Americans that are now starting to support the president, and that the polls are showing that. They don't understand why. They want the status quo. I mean, in many cases, these folks in the media, like D.L. Hughley, these comedians in the entertainment world, they're just as bad as these politicians. City of Baltimore got $1.8 billion in stimulus funds. Have you seen the videos that the president is directing us to watch, via his Twitter? Have you seen the other folks? that are posting videos of how bad it is. Now, the people on the streets who are glad the president is bringing this to somebody's attention, because Elijah Cummings has been in office for 30 years, and the city is worse off for it. And yet, I don't love like that dude. How am I supposed to talk to you when you can't love? Again, we are the morally superior left. The morally superior left that is for abortion for birth control, on-demand abortion, open borders, which is enabling sex trafficking. Oh, and by the way, Nancy Pelosi's daughter says that Epstein's arrest might lead to some of our faves, i.e. liberal Democrats, going down with him. Keep going. Again, from the D.L. Hughley Show.
That will listen. If I love Barack Obama, but if he was doing that, I'd be his loudest opponent.
No,
I would not tolerate.
No, you wouldn't.
Absolutely.
Stop.
You'd be the same.
Jamie Foxx, another African American entertainer, called Barack Obama our Lord and Savior at an entertainment award show. Something tells me the African American community in the Hollywood realm, they would not they would not criticize Barack Obama, and Barack Obama never got any negative press when he went negative. Yeah, the first African American president that put a rainbow in the White House. Keep going. Hit the play button.
Second one, but I'm not. I think that there are things that are allowed because everybody's only concerned. It's so self-centered. I've never seen anybody to talk about anything other than the economy or anything other than the judges. And really, all he's about is making sure a certain group of people who are minorities stay in charge.
Mm-hmm.
He selects judges that are inclined to like Isaiah Washington going back and forth about Trump and the whole prison thing. The bottom
Isaiah
line
Washington. See, this is bothering him. Isaiah Washington, African American, famous Trump supporter, or at least willing to say, he's doing good on these things for the African American community. He actually has a plan for the African American community, and he's executing it, and the jobs are there. And we have these limousine liberals in the entertainment industry who are worried that African Americans may actually vote for a Republican president. Go ahead.
He might be for reducing mandatory prison sentences, but he appoints judges that are inclined to give black people and brown people harsher sentences. So what is the point? It's all optics.
Because the law would restrict the judges from doing that.
We talked about this on the radio. Devil worshippers have a higher standard than he does. Yeah. Devil worshippers you couldn't be a pedophile. You can't speak bad about people. True. You can't take things from people.
Stop.
Like you can worship the devil.
Stop. Excuse me for doubting the standards. Like I'm supposed to believe that. You can't be a pedophile and worship the devil? According to who? Well, according to the people that worship the devil. Oh, you mean the people that worship the father of lies? Excuse me for being suspicious that they might misrepresent their values. Like just a little bit. Keep going here. This is what they think of us. They think that we're devil
and be a better
worship.
human being than if you worship Donald Trump. Honestly, I'm not even just look up the tenets of the Church of Satan.
I didn't believe it and looked it up.
Look up the tenets of the Church of Satan. I don't know why I know this, but look at the
how do you know it, DL?
Church of Satan. Myself and then go to a Trump rally and you'll feel safer around Beelzebub than this dude.
Stop. You will feel safer around the devil. That's what the left says. The entertainment left. You'll feel safer around the devil than around Donald Trump. I think I'm going to take Trump's side on this one. Which one? What are you guys going to do? Which side you want to be on? And it's not even it's not us on the right making the comparison. We're not making the comparison. We're not saying the left are a bunch of devil worshipers or a bunch of people that are defending devil worshipers, or the left's a bunch of people that are siding with the devil over Trump. We didn't even say that. They said it. Remember when they voted God out of their party, denied God 3 times? Remember that in the 2012 convention? Man, I don't know. That's it's pretty significant if you ask me. 870-275-9799. Back in a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab.
Kelly's RV
Here,
on 412
you can
West of
watch
Paragon.
each day's show live,
It's
or
trade-in time
watch
at
old
Kelly's
episodes
RV.
and
Well, you've had
interviews.
time to camp this
You
year,
can
and if
also
it's not the
catch
camper you want, get to
audio-only
Kelly's RV on
versions of
Highway
the show
412
right
and find
here
the
on
camper
this
you
page
want.
of
The
the
largest
website.
selection in Northeast Arkansas.
For audio-only versions of the show,
New and used,
you have
in
some
and North
options.
Showroom. Financing
For
available
Apple
and a full
iPhone
service
users,
shop.
simply
Shop where you
use the
like, but sure enough,
podcast
don't buy
app
till you
and
get to
search
Kelly's RV on Highway
Conduit
412
News.
west of Paragould.
Subscribe to the podcast to
save more
get
than
each
ever.
hour of the show
Highway 412 west
automatically
of
in your
Paragould.
app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com. Dangerous, it's irresponsible, it is doing stuff to the next generation. We're living, at their expense. It's very immoral when you think about it. But at the same time, there doesn't seem to be any, anybody in Washington that, has enough power to actually fix this problem.
Yeah, it's definitely a minority of the members of Congress who I think have the moxie to go in and fix it. And I think most people recognize that it's a problem.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Telephone number 870-275-9799. That's the telephone number if you want to text the program. Folks, I want to introduce you on the program for the first time. We've got Everett Bartlett. Everett Bartlett is the president of the Coalition to End Domestic Violence. Everett, welcome to the show.
Hello, Paul. Great to chat with you.
Yes, sir. I'm glad that you're available to spend some time with us this morning. I want to get to a few headlines, but before I do, can you just kind of tell us the Coalition to End Domestic Violence? How did you get involved with something like this?
Well, the Coalition to End Domestic Violence is a group of about 40 well-known organizations like the Tea Party Patriots and the Faith and Family Coalition and many others that are very concerned that the Violence Against Women Act has gone way off the scale. It is not about stopping domestic violence. It's all about promoting a gender agenda and growing government and undermining the family. So, and that's what we're about in a couple sentences.
You know, that's interesting. We just had Rachel Malone from Gun Owners of America talking about the End Domestic Violence or Violence Against Women Act. She was, concerned about what they were actually doing by, putting legislation or language in there that's going to disarm women. So she's just saying it's actually pro-violence in that regard. But if you don't mind, can you expand on that? What about the gender? What about the gender and the LGBT RSTLNE? Would you like to buy a Val community? What are they trying to put in the Violence Against Women Act?
Well, certainly. So this is the first of all. Let's all be aware that this was the product of former Senator Joe Biden. He was the person who carried this banner forward, and we're going all the way back to the 1990s. The Violence Against Women Act was first passed in 1994. And so let's think of this, first of all, in terms of what's happened to due process in our country. So under the Violence Against Women Act, there was a section called mandatory arrest, okay, which means that that as a result of that provision, the concept of probable cause was removed, and so that any person, usually a man, could be arrested simply on the basis of a woman's word, saying that I'm fearful, I'm afraid. No actual hard evidence, no corroboration, but that's where we can trace this all the way back to 1994. Let's now move to 2011, and that was, of course, the Obama era. And in that year, 2011, the Obama administration released a mandate that created what we now call campus kangaroo courts. These are the tribal tribunals at every college and university in Arkansas and across the country that decide on allegations of usually sexual assault. They're called campus kangaroo courts because there's no due process and there's no presumption of innocence. Let's now fast forward to 2017. That's when the Me Too movement was born. And so the Me Too movement actually transformed this fairly small issue of, Violence Against Women Act and campus kangaroo courts, transformed it into a national movement. Okay, so it galvanized the attention and the anger of millions of Americans, especially mostly women. And so the first major scalp of the Me Too movement was Senator Al Franken. And we can talk about that later if you'd like to. The following year was Brett Kavanaugh, and the hearings that all the people there were wearing T-shirts that said "Believe Survivors." Well, if that's not a complete negation of the concept of presumption of innocence, I don't know what is. So here we are, 2019. We're talking about the reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, and Senators Boozman and Cotton are key people in that debate.
Wow. So there are they changing anything from the past that's kind of enabled this, the status quo? I mean, is there newer language that's being submitted in the 2019 reauthorization?
So yes, and on steroids. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. So Mr. Biden himself has admitted that every time they do a reauthorization of the Violence Against Women Act, which is every 5 years, they make it bigger and stronger. Okay, those are his words. What they mean by that is they send out, yet another tentacle into society. You just mentioned earlier about Second Amendment rights. That's a perfect example of yet another tentacle that's being sent out as a result of VAWA that's increasingly fundamentally reshaping our society. So what's happening right now is that in the House of Representatives, which of course is controlled by Democrats, in April, just a few months ago, they passed its version of the VAWA reauthorization. And I hope you and I hope your listeners are have your seatbelts on, because this bill has fundamentally expanded the definition of domestic violence to include verbal abuse, emotional abuse, financial abuse, and technological abuse, which means that, if you have ever been subjected to the silence treatment by your spouse,
not me.
Isn't that a form of emotional abuse?
Oh man, I mean, yeah, I think you could say the answer is yes, but not. That shouldn't be that's not a crime. That's not like the government doesn't need to get involved.
Exactly, and that's the exact
I don't know about
point.
emotional abuse. I wouldn't say the word. I don't think it's abusive. Could it be? Yeah, but I mean, the government doesn't need to get involved. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean, we're not diminishing the silence treatment certainly has an impact. Calling people a nasty name has an impact, but that's not where the government needs to go. Anyway, that's the exact language. I have not exaggerated in the slightest bit in describing this House bill that passed on April the 4th.
Well, it's going to be bad. I mean, the Democrats have control of the House, so they're basically trying to do everything they can. What I would just say is the Democrats are social engineers, and they're going to try to change codes to try to get people in trouble, so they'll alter behavior. So verbal abuse. I mean, you mentioned verbal abuse. I mean, who's going to decide what verbal abuse is?
Well, that's exactly the point. That the term is not even defined in the language of the bill, which means that basically we'll just make it up as we go along.
It's really scary. Folks, we're talking with Everett Bartlett. He's the president of the Coalition to End Domestic Violence. You mentioned Al Franken. Last week, the New Yorker had a piece, and Al Franken is essentially saying he regrets resigning. Of course, there were photos of him sexually harassing a model. She was asleep, and he had photos he had taken of his hands on her chest while she was asleep. And then I think she had some allegations about the way he treated her overseas and that sort of thing, or maybe a forced kiss. I can't remember exactly, but the bottom line is the Me Too movement said, you got to go, Al Franken. And so he resigned his Senate seat for Minnesota. And now he's like, well, and members, allies in the leftist media are saying maybe Al Franken shouldn't have been forced to step down.
Correct. Yeah. So there's no doubt that Mr. Franken engaged in boorish behavior. All right. But we just accept that as a fact. Did this boorish behavior rise to the level of sexual assault? Well, if you look at that photograph you're just mentioning, I don't think she was actually touching the woman's breast.
Okay.
He was kind of pretending. So does pretending to touch a woman's breast, does that rise to the level of sexual assault? I don't think so, but that really is not the point. The point is he deserved due process. He deserved the presumption of innocence. He deserved the opportunity to face his accuser. He deserved an objective and fair inquiry, and he got none of those. And that's exactly the point. We have gone so far in our notion of due process that even a person who was thinking bad thoughts or is kind of acting out, isn't that what the presumption of innocence is all about?
I completely agree with you. I really do. As much as I, couldn't stand Al Franken's politics. The funny thing to me, in order to say funny, is, the left. I've been talking about how the left, especially the news media, they're kind of like news priests, and they can absolve you of the very thing they condemn someone for, the next day or the day before. It just this virtue signaling, this ever changing wheel of morality to accomplish their political goals. And I think, now, correct me if I'm wrong, Everett, but I think the reason why Al Franken had to go was because of the Democrats wanting to win an Alabama Senate seat where Roy Moore had all these allegations against him, of sexual misconduct or, dating young women or young girls. And I think because it happened at the same time, the Democrats were like, we've got to win this, temporarily win this seat for Democrats to send a message to the country that they're rejecting Donald Trump, and it was worth them getting rid of Al Franken. That's what I think happened, and I think Al Franken's like, that wasn't worth it because this Senate seat's probably going to go to Tommy Tuberville or whoever, whatever Republican gets it,
Yep, I think you're probably right, but again, that points to this broader, shift in our society. We've eliminated due process and made it the handmaiden of political calculations and political intrigue. And isn't there something wrong with that? But let's talk about Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, we all saw with our own eyes the specter of mob hysteria right there in the buildings of the Senate, on the doors of the Supreme Court. I mean, this is where our society has been moving since 1994, and it's time that we dial this back. And so we actually do have an opportunity. Let's talk about the Violence Against Women Act again, because this crazy bill that came out of the House of Representatives in April that turns the silence treatment into a crime, of course, the Senate is controlled by Republicans. And Republicans, I think it's fair to say they're on to the game. They're on to this broader agenda at work. They see what the gender warriors are doing. And so they have rejected this House bill, and they are working on a new version of the Violence Against Women Act that accords with due process, that accords with the presumption of innocence, and get this, the latest survey from the Centers for Disease Control shows that now men are more likely to be victims of domestic violence than women.
Wow.
That's the kind of, factual basis that we need to, make part of our thinking when we talk about domestic violence.
So when you say domestic violence, like a man, is that just like basically a woman beating up a man or hitting the man and the man doesn't do anything? Or, I mean, can you speak to that real quick? I mean, are there more women out there that just kind of think that they have a right to hit a man if they want?
Yeah. So domestic violence is, it involves a physical abuse. It could be a slap, pushing, a shove, threat to use a knife, threat to use a gun, a fist, in the face. All of those are different examples of domestic violence. And we've always known that women are pretty close to men in terms of the level of domestic violence. But now, this latest CDC report shows that actually women are 31% more likely to be the perpetrators than men. And that's never happened before.
That is strange. I wonder why. I wonder why that is, because you're right. I mean,
well, I think there's two reasons for that, Paul. One is that because of the name of this law, it only has paid attention to male perpetrated abuse. So female perpetrated abuse has been sort of we'll give that a free pass kind of thing. But I think there's a deeper reason, and that this is part of the ideology behind the Violence Against Women Act. That ideology says that people engage in domestic violence in order to uphold patriarchal power and privilege. Of course, that's totally absurd, but that is the ideology. And so I'm aware of examples of women who condone other women being violent, physically violent, because they think, oh, you're toppling the patriarchy because you just punched your husband in the stomach.
That's it's certainly interesting times that we live in, and certainly things are changing, and that's a potential explanation for it. I don't know. It definitely is. I'm glad that you bring this up, though. We're talking with Everett Bartlett. We appreciate you coming on the show, president of the Coalition to End Domestic Violence. Everett, we're going to make a YouTube video of this, for the listeners, just a separate video. And we're going to share this out there. I really appreciate what you have to say about the End Domestic Violence Act, or against women. What's the name of it again?
Violence Against Women Act.
Violence Against Women Act, and the language that they're putting in there that are essentially, doing the Democrats' bidding and trying to social engineer and change behavior, change the law. Expanding government where they have no business of being. And we need to stop this thing, and hopefully the Senate will amend this new language out, and at the very least send it back to the House that way.
Correct. So Senators Boozman and Cotton, they need to hear from your listeners that there is broad awareness of how this bill has clearly gone off the rails, is just ignoring due process, and we're seeing the broader effects.
Well, I appreciate it, Everett Bartlett. It's always great to have you on, sir.
Good to talk with you, Paul.
All righty. We'll do it again soon. 870-275-9799. Call or text, and we'll be back here in just a moment.
It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Hi, folks. Paul Harrell here. For those that can't catch Conduit News Radio with me on the radio every morning from 6 a.m. to 8, don't panic. You can always listen anytime on our digital platforms using your smartphone or computer. In this video, I'm here to help you navigate to the many options you have to watch or listen to the show across our digital platforms. First, you can catch the show on Facebook. Just use your internet browser and type in facebook.com/Conduit News. From there, select Videos on the left side of your screen. From there, you can watch the full 2-hour show each day or select specific interviews you want to watch. Another place you can watch the show is on YouTube. Just use your internet browser and type in youtube.com. Then, in the search bar, search for Conduit News. Select the Conduit News page as it appears. While here, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit the little bell to receive notifications when new videos are ready. From YouTube, you can also watch every live show daily and all the interviews I have with guests. More options are available at our website, conduitnews.com. Select the Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell tab. Here, you can watch each day's show live or watch old episodes and interviews. You can also catch audio-only versions of the show right here on this page of the website. For audio-only versions of the show, you have some options. For Apple iPhone users, simply use the podcast app and search Conduit News. Subscribe to the podcast and get each hour of the show automatically in your app daily. You can also download the SoundCloud app from your app store and search Conduit News to find your station. And that goes for Android users as well. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. We want to make sure you get the latest on Arkansas news and politics. You have many options to know what government is doing in your name and with your tax dollars. Learn more at conduitnews.com.
But it's so much easier to spend something that you don't have than to make a decision to say no somewhere. And the media doesn't help out at all, because it's, like I said, if you've got a baseline budget that's saying you're going to have a 5% increase every year over the next 10 years, and you want to drop that down to just a 4% increase, well, the headlines are going to be, you vote to slash all these programs when you're actually spending more money this year than you spent last year on it. If we could hold spending at the same level we had it the year before, we could make a dramatic difference in the deficit and still spend the same amount of money we spent the year before. So it's not unsolved.
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Okay. 870-275-9799. We want to thank you guys for starting the beginning of your week with us here, the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. If you missed hour one, you need to go back and check it out, because we drew some interesting parallels between what the president said about Baltimore, what the mayor of Baltimore said, agreeing with the president, but a couple years ago, how the mayor of Baltimore has been raided by the IRS and the FBI, how Elijah Cummings' wife is under investigation by the FBI for doing exactly what it appears to be, doing a lot of what Preferred Family Healthcare did when it came to nonprofits paying a company to manage the nonprofit that was owned by the employee of the nonprofit. This is what Elijah Cummings' wife is accused of, and boy, doesn't that sound familiar. So you'll definitely want to check out hour number one. We mentioned that, and we kind of go over the hilarity of Trump's a racist. Trump supporters are racist. Everybody's a racist. You pointed out a factual thing. You pointed out that rodents. They didn't call Drew Pinsky a racist when 2 weeks ago he said that LA's got such a bad rat problem they may have the bubonic plague if they're not careful. Anyway, here is your meme of the day. Speaking of racism and the left's obsession with race, this is courtesy of Conservative Trooper on Instagram. It is a photo of Christian Bale from the movie from the movie Batman Begins, and it's the scene where he finds the Batmobile, or what later becomes Batmobile, but it's at first it's like a tan camouflage color, like for like the Middle East. And so he has fun, he's riding it, Morgan Freeman is riding shotgun, and he spins the car around and he looks at Morgan Freeman and he says, "Does it come in black? Does it come in black? It's not who I am underneath." Sorry, that's kind of like more like a surfer dude. I'm sorry. At first I really thought his Batman voice was good. But then it was really bad. Like, it got really, "I'm not wearing hockey pads." Like, really? I can't understand what you're saying. But I can't understand what you're saying. Anyway, so it's that photo of Christian Bale looking back and saying, "Does it come in black?" And the meme is iconic white character exists. Hollywood. Does it come in black? Because we need to make a politically correct statement here. And sorry, that's what it is. This is a great meme, and it exposes this agenda. This man, it's almost like how people misunderstand the gospel, and they think that, well, if you're a Christian, then the gospel is a list of do's and don'ts, and you shouldn't do this or you should do that, and that's what's going to get you into heaven, and that's not what gets you into heaven at all. It is only Jesus' righteousness imputed to us. But the what's interesting about this is the left themselves have this. In many cases, it's a societal religion of that this dogma, if you will. Like, there's some book somewhere that we don't know about, but there are people that can recognize injustice. And I'm not suggesting that injustice doesn't exist. It clearly exists in the world. Like, a bad thing happened. This is a wrong thing. But they don't know how to reconcile injustice. That's why they want to tear down statues. That's why they want to tear down and rewrite history. They don't even want to remember, that flawed people can do good things, and flawed people obviously do bad things, and that's why there is this now almost unspoken new religion of the left where iconic white character exists. We want to make a movie about it. Hollywood's that, yeah, okay, but does it come in black or some other color than white? The news.